This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today I'm going to talk about making the wrong or right decision. And I probably saw this, I think, pop up recently on Instagram. Somebody was talking about how a mentor of theirs said there's no wrong or right decision. You make a decision, then you make it right. Which, makes sense. I don't mind that. But it really does bring in this, constant concern that some people have of like, I want to make sure I make the right decision. It's like, mate, there's too many factors that are outside of your control about making the right decision. You could look at something and have a decision to make, and then look at all the resources that you know, and then go, it makes sense, it's the right decision, and then only in hindsight you realize that it wasn't a very good decision based on what you expected or what outcome you wanted. However, the learning that you got from that is now a good decision later down the track when you're in a similar situation and you end up becoming successful from it, which then gives you more of a confidence boost to make more decisions, and then you make a poor decision, so on and so on and so on and so forth. It's just decisions. Even look at the word decision, means it's the opposite of incision. To cut in is incision, to cut out is decision. So you look at all your options and you make a decision, which means you cut out the other options and you choose one. Right? This is really, really interesting, especially with somebody who runs a strong options meta program, a program like a mental program, rather than it sort of being black and white, it's options, right? Rather than it being this or that, it's just like, well, it's just there's so many variables. And so the interesting thing around that is that when we get stuck in indecision, right? When we get stuck at looking at all the options and stuck in trying to make the right decision, we end up not making any decision, which is a decision, and it's usually the wrong decision, right? Because not making a decision is a decision. You are deciding not to make a decision. That's, it's kind of a conundrum, but at the same time, it's like that is often the worst decision that we can make. Because one of the ways that you can look at it is that you're only one decision away from a good decision. So if you make a decision and it doesn't work out very well, then you're only one decision away from a better decision, right? Just make another decision. And when we become decisive, we start to be able to make changes in our life. It's when we're constantly worried about what would be the best option, and is this going to be beneficial for me long term, or what are other people going to think about this, and we end up stalling. The example that I can give you is like having too many tabs open on your Safari, your Explorer, your Google Chrome, whatever it may be. You have too many internet tabs open. It's like, mate, it's time to make a decision because your bandwidth is running low because it's trying to keep all those tabs open. So you got to close some tabs. And when you can close some tabs, then all your bandwidth can go into one or two decisions that you've made based on which areas of your life you're focusing on, right? And it's that ability to go that, what am I afraid of in making a decision? Well, sometimes the person's afraid of the, FOMO, fear of missing out on better ideas or better options or better situations, and they're always future orientated, right? Because if your fear of missing out of something, it's in the future. It's not here right now. And so you look at something like the Enneagram, the personality test that I talk about quite frequently, then that's often a type 7 individual. It's like they're always worried about, a better time. Even like this kind of person, you might be talking to them and they're off. You can tell they're just kind of looking over your shoulder. They're like, yeah, that's cool, man. That's great. Yeah, cool. And they're just looking at the next better conversation. And the reason being is that they want to be seen, but they have this fear of missing out. And it's just an example, right? And it's a really powerful example because how often do we spend time in the future or the past? And it's like, well, what's the benefit of that? It's like, well, I don't want to miss out on the best thing, which presupposes that right now it's not the best thing, which means that if I constantly do that, then I never live the best thing, whereas right now is the best thing because it's the only thing. And so for us, being able to slow down in order to speed up and then make decisions, not worry about whether it's right or wrong, make a decision and then work hard to make sure it was the right decision. But after the decision, right, when you find a solution, let's call it the solution decision, slightly different, but let's call it that. When you make a decision, you get gifted with another decision. Like, it's just constantly. making decisions. And so people get in decision fatigue, and this is why you find some successful people wearing the same shit every single day. It's like, well, it's really boring. It's like, well, I don't have to make a decision about what I eat for breakfast. I don't have to make a decision about what I wear. I don't have to make a decision about how I get to work. So I don't get this decision fatigue that people that constantly have to change their attire, people that are constantly worried about where they're going to get coffee from, and what podcast that should they listen to, and blah 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 blah. All this sort of stuff is that over time then it does become decision fatigue. And so that decision fatigue really feeds into this idea of going, well, now I can't make any decisions, not realizing that's the decision. And because of that, they end up running out of this sort of drive and power, and then they end up getting fucking nothing for dinner because they can't make a decision on what they want for dinner. They end up eating shit. They can't decide to go to the gym in the afternoon because they couldn't make some decisions besides staying at work late, because they couldn't stand up for themselves and say, no, I'm not going to stay at work late. I've got to look after my health, and so on and so on and so forth. And you times that by 3,650 days, which is 10 years, not including leap years. And because of that, we start looking at that, and people go, I don't know how it happened. It just kind of happened overnight. It's like, no, it happened because you weren't making decisions. You're making decisions on things that weren't important, and on the important stuff, you avoided making decisions that really made a positive impact on your life. And when it makes a positive impact on your life, it makes a positive impact on the lives of the people around you. And this goes into personal responsibility. It's our ability to respond to a situation is the power to make a decision. And when we can make that decision, then things start to change. Then things start to shift. And when things start to shift, we start building momentum. But we must be very wary of getting caught up in this, like, fuck, I've made some really good decisions. It's like, you've just made decisions. Something that's good in the short term, that looks good, long term may not be good for you. I've had success short term, and it cost me a lot long term. And I've had some difficulty short term, and they end up being successful for me long term. Like, it's just perspective. And so this is where actually there is no good and bad. There is no right and wrong. I mean, there's wrong in eyes of the law or in other people's morals or your morals, but that's still subjective. I know that the law is a little bit objective. Like, I get that, but from a human standpoint, the laws are different in every single country and state for reasons that they're actually subjective. They can be amended, so to speak. And so understanding all of this, there's no right or wrong. We just make decisions. And when we can make decisions, then we take ownership and responsibility for our life. Then we stop blaming other people. And when we can take responsibility, when we can take that ownership, when we make decisions, then that's when things start to shift in our lives. And that's the next stage for so many people. But it has to start with decisions. And so catch ourselves. This is my offer for you. Catch yourself stalling on making decisions on things, and see how important this is. And see where your mind goes with it. You know, see if your mind goes, oh, I'll make a decision on that later. And you go, well, why is that? It's like, well, because I'm afraid that this person might, okay, it's based on another person's opinion of what you're going to do and what you're going to say and what they're going to think of you, etc., etc. How important is that to you, right? Or it's more like, I don't want to lose any money. It's like, well, what you may not realize is not actually making a decision right now is like, you're fucking losing money. You're going to have to invest money. Money is just a form of energy, so you're going to have to invest energy into this project that you love, that you want to do. What's the trade-off here? Because when we give energy, we get energy. Right, and if we try and hoard energy, if we try and hoard money, then in that circumstance, we show the world that we are absent of this energy, of love, of patience, of whatever. So pay attention to that, because it's powerful beyond fucking measure. Hey, not just in money, like in everything, in love, in friendship, in giving. People go, I give all the time and I don't receive anything back. Not fucking giving, dude. That's not giving. Giving is with the idea of not receiving, just being able to give. That's giving. Giving and waiting for a receiving is not giving, it's transactioning. Really fucking different. And on that note, team, I am out. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me. And also Petey, if you would pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already, then find me on Instagram at DDNix and on Facebook under Dave Nixon or Functional Fitness Australia. And then I'm out. I'm done. Thank you very much. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.